Sufism is the final expression. Someone's asking about antithesis. No, it's the final expression. It's the completion. You see, because you see, most Muslims, Islam for the masses sits here on the left. Okay, Islam for the masses is the outer practice. However, the Quran and Hadith have also a hidden meaning called the batin, the inner, the esoteric, the hidden, right? The esoteric meaning to hide, to be secret, right? The secret meaning. But Muslims, lay Muslims, are trapped here. They are legislative subjects, and they must be managed by legislative practitioners, administrators, lawyers.
Bloody
Remember,
hell.
Islam does not have priests. It has lawyers, right? Imams are technically lawyers.
And lawmakers, yeah.
They are administrators, right? They are bureaucrats. They're not priests. The spiritual practitioners of Islam are these guys here, the Sufis, the highest level. The Sufis are actually, let me show you, since we are talking about this.
Yeah.
This is very brief.
So the Ishara could be considered like the guardians of the law, yeah?
I guess it's a fair way to say.
Is that, because then there's, beyond the Imams, we get to where the real Gnosticism comes into play, right?
Yeah, correct. So this would, I think, your Qadis, your Sheikhs, generally these guys, now again, there's 4 different levels of Imams, there's different levels of Sheikhs, but your administrators of the culture, of the civic legal administrators, these guys, your Qadis, your judges,
they're
your
like
Sheikhs,
your civil servants,
do the fatwas, they fit here in this level.
Right.
And then your spiritual scholars, your Imams, your deeper, your high level Imams, right? The Sufis, they sit here at these 2 levels. Don't forget, remember, I have asked before, saints in Islam. When you look up the words saints in Islam, you will only come up with Sufi saints.
Very true, yes.
Right? The only saints in Islam are Sufis. Now, isn't that strange? That the true saints of Islam are the Sufis.
That is very strange indeed. In fact, like the Islam for the masses, who are not appreciative of the Sufi element, actually consider that also shirk level, because why do you need a saint also? Because a lot of these saints in Sufism also can intercede between your prayers, so you actually start praying to them. Even in countries like Pakistan, we have shrines which are dedicated to Sufi saints, and I mean, it's not just Muslims that go there, but essentially, when I went there as well, it was that we had to maintain a strong balance of between, you pay your respects, but you don't worship it, because that's going into the realm of committing shirk, But people do interchange them for a profit almost of their own, because even in Sufism, it's like mandatory that you have a teacher. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, there are 9 levels of Sufis basically. And actually, let me show you guys something. Since you just mentioned the word worship, let me bring this across here. And I'm gonna. Here we go.
Oh my days.
Yeah. So when they speak about the oral traditions of Islam, oopsie, sorry about that. So when they speak of the oral tradition of Islam, maybe this is what they're referring to right here.
Lloyd, how are you going to do that to me on a Thursday evening?
Sorry about that. I just had to spread the misery. I don't want to be the only person. But notice, remember, we spoke in monotheism. Pagans worshipped rocks. The Arab pagans worshipped rocks, right? Muhammad and Khadija worshipped these rocks. Alat, Manat, and Al-Uzza. He had a son called Abd al-Uzza. This is in the Islamic sources. Muslims will deny it whole day, every day, but it's fact. It's written in their sources, right? These guys are rubbing themselves up against and worshipping a rock. These guys are rubbing and worshipping a rock. This guy is praying to a rock. This guy is licking a rock.
Yeah.
Now tell me this is not paganism.
I mean, I cannot look you in the eye and tell you that that's not paganism. And Lloyd, it's interesting because there's a hadith, and I can't remember it verbatim, but it's something to the effect of, we would not have kissed the stone, the black stone, unless we hadn't seen
Muhammad do it.
Yeah, Muhammad do it himself. Exactly. So even he could not let go of some of his pre-Islamic traditions, the way that they would worship. And that literally fell into Islam, because if Muhammad's done it, the rest have to follow suit.
Yeah. So understand, this is just a continuation of because so don't forget, Rahman originally was the Jewish and Arab Christian name for Yahweh, for the Christian God. This
Sorry,
was the
sorry,
name
Lloyd,
of the.
just 1 second. Just for anyone that's just listening to this, Order of the Dragon has sent a super chat. So thank you. And he's asked Lloyd specifically, when Muhammad said Bismillah Rahman Rahim, didn't he call upon 3 gods? Rahman is the god of Yamama and Rahim is the god Solomon.
Yeah, so we covered this in monotheism. So originally, in the 2nd century, the Jews and the Jewish Christians, then of course, because they came from the Jewish tradition, and then the Arab Christians were calling their God, when it was from the Hebrew into the Arabic, they were calling Yahweh, the Christian God, Yahweh. They were calling him Rahman, right? And then later on in the 4th century, if I recall, then the pagans started to adopt this god. They made similar gods. They would copy these gods and then have similar attributes. And then they started using the name Rahman, but the pagans adopted it about 100 or 200 years later. And Muhammad comes along in the 7th century, and of course, so he starts. So Allah at that time had no name, and eventually, when it was like, so what's the name of Allah? It's like, because Allah literally just means the God, right? It's
Yeah.
generic.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, when he was challenged to identify who his God was, because don't forget, in 624, when Muhammad said, look, let's not pray towards Jerusalem, pray towards Mecca,
Mecca,
the
yeah.
Kaaba at that time was pagan. Who
Yeah.
was the god of the Kaaba in 624? Well, it was Hubal, right? Hubal was Baal, right?
Yeah.
And Baal is a specific name sometimes, and it's a generic term sometimes, right? At that time, though, Baal, within that context, was identified with Sin, the Mesopotamian moon god, right? As we
Yes.
discussed.
Yeah.
So this was Sin, so the Baal of the Kaaba was Hubal, who was Sin, the Mesopotamian moon god, right? So the Kaaba at that time, the chief god was the Mesopotamian moon god. So in 624, all the Muslims were praying to the Kaaba, which had Baal as the chief god. So doesn't that tell you Muhammad for many years was directly pagan? So, and then he just said, oh, hell, by the way, let's not call him Hubal, let's call him Rahman. How's that for a name? We'll copy the name of these other guys.
Yeah.
So hopefully that gives you an answer.
Yeah, I think that was a very succinct answer. Thank you very much, Lloyd. And we have discussed that, by the way. We go into a lot more detail about Hubal and Baal and the Mesopotamian moon god in the series Monotheism, if you haven't seen it already.
So Islam for the masses, right? And then you've got these levels here. And as I said, the only saints in Islam are Sufi saints. So the highest spiritual level in Islam was achieved exclusively by the Sufis. Don't forget, you go to Al Azhar University in Mecca,
Egypt,
in Cairo,
yeah,
right, which is the most prestigious and most exclusive Islamic seminary in the world. And the rector, the man who runs it, is a Sufi. The guy before him was, guess what, a Sufi. And they not only teach the 4 main schools of Sunni Islam, they also happen to teach they acknowledge the Jafari school of Shia Islam. And
oh,
not
wow.
only that, the Jafari school is Al-Azhar has acknowledged them as legitimate. And then on top of that, they also teach the 7 major schools of Sufism. Few people know that.
Yeah, okay, wow.
Why wouldn't
I mean, Lloyd, imagine being privy to that kind of information, that Islamic Sufi Gnosticism that they are. I mean, because who else would be privy to that information? I know you've done some deep digging into what it is that happens within these orders and what it actually stands for. But I mean, I'm sure very few. So, to be a saint, then would you have to have passed like studying those 7 schools of Sufi thought? Like, how
you'd
do
have
you
to
get
pick one
initiated,
of
or
them. You pick one of them and you follow a guide, the peer.
the
You
murshid, the
follow
peer?
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you follow him because there are 9 levels, and he's going to initiate you, and you go up these 9 levels until you become sainted, basically.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't looked into it very deeply. I mean, in that
Yeah.
sense, specifically. I mean, for instance, let me just go. Let me just go here. For instance, I mean, if I just go into the notes on the Lataif and the Haqa'iq and all that, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. I mean, it's just so much information. I'll skip it. It's just you just
Okay.
realize that this is a very deep rabbit hole once you dig down.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, you know what? My interest is always peaked in Sufism, so we could do an entire series on it. Once, obviously, you've researched more into it, I'll go and do some research as well, and we can come and actually do a deep dive. But yeah, okay, back to Sharia today.
Yeah. Okay, so now brief aside to the Shia. right? The Shia means Shiat Ali, the party of Ali, whereas the Sunnis are the party of the Sunnah, wrote the way of Muhammad, right?
The Ahl
So
Bayt, yeah.
Sharia, okay, is generally translated as law. I'm going to just very quickly run over this, not spend any depth on this. Haqa'iq, the esoteric truths, right? So this is about some of the words about the Shia, right? So the religious revolution of man was considered to have taken place in 7 years under 7 prophets, the first of whom were Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. So if Adam was a prophet, what prophecies did Adam make? If anyone can tell me, drop it in the comments. Love to know.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course, I mean, yeah, Jews don't. Tell me something. If you blaspheme Moses, do the Jews kill you?
No,
No. And if you blaspheme Muhammad, what happens?
you get your head chopped off, or
Yeah.
yeah,
So
or
so
attempts.
so yeah, there's something a little weird about this Muhammad guy. Okay.
Yeah, and there's something very
Now,
weird about this prophet claim for all of these others, just to lump them in there
yeah.
to kind of give yourself that legitimacy. Because yeah, you're right. According to Adam, didn't even know that he was going to get kicked out of Jannat. So
Yeah, but also notice Satan was kicked out of paradise by Allah, okay, because Allah is all powerful. And
yeah,
then later on, Satan tempts Eve. So how did he get back in without Allah knowing?
yeah,
Right?
that's a point to ponder as well. Did Allah leave the back door of heaven open or something?
Must have been, must have been. So, yeah. So anyway, this Haqqaiq, this final level, right, transcended human reason. See, it's not about reason; it's about this occult connection, right? And it ultimately derived from Gnostic doctrines, considering the principles of spiritual and physical worlds in Neoplatonic terms. Now, I will go later on into more depth on this, but this is so you had Plato, and then you had the Neoplatonists. They were out and out Gnostics. They hated the Christians, and so but there's a longer story there. But what happened was when they became an empire and they wanted to unify their empire, they needed a set of cohesive doctrines that everyone would follow, a common set of themes of law and culture that everyone would adhere to. And that's when the Sharia was created to provide this framework. But also they believed that they were building the caliphate, right, the Khalifa, and they wanted a perfect state. And they had no idea because from camel drivers, they suddenly now had this global empire. And so they took their ideas of how to build a caliphate from Plato's Republic through the lens of the Neoplatonists. But that's
Wow.
another history. I'll cover that.
Okay. Yeah.
So that happens through a scholar called Al-Farabi. Your
Right.
thoughts?
No, I'm literally like, I had no idea of this connection here. So yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to delve deeper into that. Literally, I would never have attributed that kind of thought to how they were trying to cement Islam via Sharia in that way.
Yeah. No, that's what they
Yeah,
did. I mean, I can show you some of the
news
notes
to
on
me.
that. So
Okay, cool.
So, so just this final slide to the Shia and the Gnosticism, right? So the Gnostics held that the physical world had been created by an inferior deity, the Yahweh of the Old Testament. So Yahweh of the Old Testament is considered to be Satan, right, to the Gnostics. And
Okay.
he was allowed a certain latitude until Allah, basically the monad, decided to send his son to inhabit the body of Jesus and free the world from false teachings, right? So certain Gnostic notions passed into Islam when Muhammad adopted the Gnostic idea that the body which was crucified was only a phantom which the Jews and Romans could not harm. Now, if you read the Islamic scholars, if you read their stories on the
Yeah.
crucifixion, you will find no two scholars agree. They have all sorts of contradictory stories. The details don't match. I've got about 7 of these that I covered in one of my episodes. I discussed like 7 of these different conflicting stories. In one of them, the one famous Islamic scholar says 4,000 Romans surrounded the house that Jesus was in, for instance. Like there's absolutely no record of anything like that. But I mean, they just make up a whole bunch of stories. So they'll tell you Jesus was not on the cross, but if you ask them who was on the cross, then give me the name. They're like, um, they have no idea, right?
Yeah.
So this is
But
from a book
isn't
called.
the overall concept, Lloyd,
Sorry.
that the fact that they not at least unanimously agree on the fact that Jesus, his like soul went up, like he was actually saved,
He
and it
was
was
no
just a
bodily.
body,
So
yeah,
they say he was bodily
crucified.
removed. No, he was
Yes.
bodily removed, saved by Allah. So the question is, then why was Muhammad poisoned by a woman?
Yeah.
How,
Yeah. Yeah.
right, which is odd because if Mo is so famous, how come Mo died through poisoning and Jesus was apparently saved by Allah?
Yeah, I
Makes
know.
no
And also
sense.
Muhammad's poisoning is even worse because he did say at one point, like, if I wasn't a prophet of God, I would feel as if my aorta was being cut or something. And that's
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah.
he uttered to Aisha when
Yeah, no,
he
I
was
can go
on his
into depth
deathbed.
on that as well. I've got
Yeah.
lots of notes on.
Okay, yeah, we should talk about that at some point too. But I just wanted to get your thoughts really quickly. I just wanted to ask you a question because this whole concept of Islam kind of trying to like incorporating Jesus and putting him on the pedestal as a prophet and then saying this version of the Islamic narrative of what happened at the crucifixion. Why do you think Muhammad possibly adopted this Gnostic idea? Was it for legitimacy? Was it because he was drawn to Gnosticism himself? Like, how do you kind of see
Like,
that whole
look,
thing?
Islam is, as we discussed in monotheism, it's at core pagan, right? Originally pagan.
Mm,
We know it goes
mm.
back to the first millennium BC. And then we know within the second century, this Gnostic movement starts. And I think he needed to provide some kind of legitimacy, but also he wanted to stand against the Christian doctrine. So this allowed him to assume a facade of Christianity, which was a widely spread, rapidly growing religion, but also that allowed him to defy it.
And say, yeah, they're wrong because this is what actually happened. So again,
Yeah.
that lends to their scriptures have been corrupted, they've been misguided. This is the real truth now.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
do talk about it in my Gnostic stuff, and that's worth again in the future. Once we finish one thing, we can. There's a lot of interesting history there. I mean, just the history you go through the existing like work on this. It's really. I have no idea what the Ahmadiyas believe, to be
Sure.
honest.
Oh yeah, well, Order of the Dragon. Thanks again. Order of the Dragon saying actually the Ahmadiyas do believe he was crucified. Well, I didn't know that. The Ahmadis are actually another sect of Islam. They're a minority sect, and they're not really. I mean, to Sunnis, Sunnis consider them non-Muslim. So there's a lot of beef there. I mean, to the point in Pakistan where they're not really allowed to hold positions, and their passport actually says non-Muslim. But yeah, and they follow their own kind of leader who has in some way kind of made himself out to be a prophet of his own kind, basically. So they have their own books, they have their own teachings. They're also quite disturbing in themselves for other reasons. They're quite funny as well. But I did not know that they actually diverged on the view from Sunni Muslims on the crucifixion as well, and they actually believe that Jesus did die on the cross. So that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that, and I will look into it a bit more so we can discuss that.
Yeah. Perfect Dawa um,
Yes.
said that this is, but someone else is speaking of his ISIS version of Islam. Now, don't forget, ISIS practices
Oh.
pure Sunni Islam. It
Mm.
is pure Sunni Islam. It does not deviate from the Sharia. There is nothing that they do that deviates from the Sharia. Briefly speaking, so if you look at the Umdat al-Salik, right, the world's most popular Sunni Islamic law manual, it's a user's guide to sacred law. It discusses personal ethics and character, Islamic spirituality, and the tenets of faith. And notice he says that the many who were Sufis were of the strictest observance of the sacred law. So Sufis are fully observant with the Sharia, and then they move over into the Hakika.
Okay, wow.
They need to be,
So
and I want,
they also embody the perfection of the Sharia, I'm guessing, right?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
exactly. So, and I want to show, oopsie, wrong mistake here. Fix that. So notice these are warrants attesting to the accuracy and the correctness, right, of the Umdat al-Salik. Right? For instance, these are different warrants here. But let's look at Al-Azhar, right, the world's oldest and most exclusive and most prestigious Islamic university. Of course, Perfect Dawah is going to let us know that they aren't real Muslims in just a second,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
But Al-Azhar Islamic Research Academy, okay, and they state here, we certify that the above mentioned translation, that's this book we're looking at right now, corresponds to the Arabic original and conforms to the practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community, the Al-Sunnah al-Jama'ah, and there is no objection to printing and circulating it. This is 100% correct Sunni
Accurate.
Islam.
Yes.
Yes. So this is Orthodox, and there's the other warrants that attest to this as well, including the Mufti in charge of the Jordanian army, who I'm sure we're going to hear in just a second is not a real Muslim, including the Muslim Brotherhood, one of their
No true
people
Scotsman
is
is going to fly around the comments, Lloyd. Make no
exactly.
mistake about it.
Okay, so notice now the proselyte is taught that a prophet is known as such not by miracles. So very conveniently, Muhammad is not known by miracles. but his ability to construct and impose, right, to create, like Marx wrote communism and then imposed it by force, a kind of system that is at once political, social, religious, and philosophical. So this defines a true prophet.
Ain't that the truth when it comes to Muhammad? I mean, yeah, Lloyd, even in the last session, you showed us like the breakdown of like Deen and how like
Yeah.
it being a religion was almost like a mere footnote. It was so low down the list of initially what Islam is actually meant to be in like in its de facto form. Religion is
Yeah.
almost like like a little byproduct of it.
Yeah. Or religion. It's number 10 in the list of 12 priorities.
Yeah.
And it says or religion, not and. Subjugation, dominance, bondage, subordination, dominance under the power of Muslims, rules and regulations, and then or religion, right? And notice, deen does not mean religion, it means obedience. In
Yeah.
their context.
And it fits so perfectly. Like Deen means obedience. Being a Muslim means you are a slave of Allah, obedient slave. Like it fits really perfectly.
Well, yeah, if you look,
And then the only
see,
way you're protected as a
look at
Muslim, and then everybody
ibadat,
else is
worship.
subjugated. Yeah.
You look at worship, remember, submissive obedience to a master, right?
Yeah.
So allowing yourself willing to be controlled, inclined to submit, ready to submit, to yield to the authority, unresistingly obedient, pliant in the hands of your masters. It's bondage, as someone says here, Grey Jedi. It is bondage, correct. So yeah, let me
Yeah.
skip forward again.
It is exactly, and very much that slave master relationship playing out. But Lloyd, I just want to just on that point, it's so like repulsive when, like, for example, the man who attacked Salman Rushdie, there were pictures of him circulating in court, and these Pakistani like high profile celebrities or imams were circulating fake news that he refused to take like swear an oath, and he said, I'm not going to even like lower my head, I don't bow before anyone besides Allah. So this concept of obedience and bowing down before only Allah, I mean, as perverse as it is from this perspective, even people who are so brainwashed with this level of thinking, they use it in a way that's so powerful that I only prostrate or bow down before God, and the law means nothing, the law of the land I live in means nothing, no other human being means nothing. It's such there's always this sense of like really masochistic ego that's behind it.
Yeah.
I don't know
No,
how else to
it's
describe it.
yeah, no, there's something rigid and unyielding about it. And yeah, it's not conducive to getting along. I mean, it's just yeah, what do we
The
say about that? I
antithesis
mean,
of getting along. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so let's talk about Islam's greatest historian, Ibn Khaldun, revered. He's this guy's face is on money, right? He's so famous, right? So he talks here about Quran 6:18, Allah the forceful subjugator. Okay, he is the subjugator over his servants. Now, Ibn Khaldun wrote the very first major historical work, basically on sociology. So he is regarded as the father of sociology, the study of history, basically, and as the most famous historian to live in Islam, right? A great scholar. And also, this guy is a trained imam. He is a trained religious scholar, highly, highly trained, which means in just a second, he's going to be not a real Muslim. So,
Yes.
right. So he says here, Allah exercises forceful domination over his servants. It should be known that after the removal of its prophet, a religious group must have someone to take care of it. They're going to take care of you because to cause the people to act according to the religious laws. He urges the obligations imposed, doesn't ask politely, imposed upon them. The human species must have a person who will cause them to act in accordance with what is good for them, because the imams know what is good for you, and who will prevent them by force from doing things harmful to them, which is to violate the Sharia. Such a person is the one who is called ruler, and in the Muslim community, the holy war is a religious duty because of the universalism of the Muslim mission and the obligation to convert everybody to Islam by persuasion or by force. Therefore, the caliphate and royal authority are united in Islam, so no separation between mosque and state, so that the person in charge can devote the available strength to both of them. The other religious groups, now this is written after the Crusades. This is written well after the Crusades. Okay?
Right.
Finished. So this guy is not So oddly enough, so he is writing after the Crusades, and he doesn't say that these guys are nasty. He says, no, us Muslims are the attackers here. He says the other religious groups did not have a universal mission, and holy war was not a religious duty to them, except for the purposes of defense. The person in charge of religious affairs in other religious groups is not concerned with power politics at all.
But hey, we are.
Yes, exactly.
We're obsessed.
Yeah, and among them, royal authority comes to those who have it by accident and in some way that has nothing to do with religion. Not because they are under obligation to gain power over other nations, as is the case with Islam. They are merely required to establish their religion among their own people.
Wow.
This is blatant. This is word for word from the book.
This
from
is blatant, Lloyd. And it literally, when people try and say that, like Muslim apologists say, oh, well, there's still that verse where there's no compulsion in religion. No, every other thing besides that, since that verse was revealed, has said otherwise. Because even like, look at the diction above. Allah exercises forceful, like Allah himself
Yeah.
is like an extension of Muslim behavior and jihad, right? Allah
Mhm.
exercises forceful domination over his servants. That's coercion, that's control, that's literally an extension of the way that Muslim Ummah is supposed to conduct jihad, and as they say, is the case with Islam to gain power over other nations.
So it is a political system and it is a
Yeah.
legal system. So it's legitimate to ask, what are its politics and what are its laws?
Yeah.
It's totalitarian. It's like Marxism. It's like Nazism. It's very little difference.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we can show that Hitler was directly influenced by two high-ranking Muslims. One of them a Salafi and one of them a Sufi.
And I just want to say, just to Ali Dawa out there, because this is like Ibn Khaldun saying it himself, like they're basically saying Islam's prerogative is to go out. And like, oh, these other religions, like they're really pacifist. They only defend themselves. Our duty is to be the aggressors. And literally, Ibn Khaldun is saying that they're proud of that in this. Islam is proud of that. They're flexing how
well, notice
aggressive they are.
Perfect Dawah says in a comment that they just find a bunch of lies from fabricated hadiths and ignore the Quran. That's all we're doing. We find a bunch of lies from fabricated hadiths. Well, no. No, this is not a. This is the greatest historian. Of course. Oh, sorry. He's not a real Muslim. Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I just want to just say quick, if the mods can also be on it, because Perfect Dawah is actually I don't know. I need to speak
Ali Doofus?
again to
someone else?
Armin Nawabi and Haris Sultan to clarify what's going on. But apparently, there's allegations that you're affiliated to an organization that I just would not be okay with even platforming you on this channel. So yeah, if it gets out of hand, could the mods just take care of that? And sorry, Lloyd, we've just got a question for you real quick from Order of the Dragon again. Thank you
we
so
tackle
much.
that later because this is outside of my
We'll come back to this.
This is not something that I know much about or care about.
Okay. So the question was basically, what can you tell us about Muhammad? Apparently information says there wasn't a person like that. Jay Smith is researching into it and he's asking if Lloyd is aware of that. The claims are that a warlord existed.
So I can only give you my theory, which is going to be the 15th theory on the subject. So,
I was just going to say the same thing. I think there's a lot of narratives out there that are surfacing. So, yeah, I guess if you wanted Lloyd's personal opinion, he could definitely give that at the end if he's willing to.
Yeah. Okay. So on the point of what Ali Doofus or Perfect Doofus just said, okay, few people are aware that the hadiths have tafsir. Everyone knows that there are tafsir of the Quran, like Ibn Kathir. Few people are aware that scholars don't read the hadiths directly. They study the tafsir of the hadith. Notice we have tafsir. Now, this book is a retranslation of the most famous tafsir of hadith called the Fath al-Bari by Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who just became not a real Muslim.
Yes.
Just wait for it in the comments. This man is regarded as a giant in the world of Islamic scholarship. Okay, this man's a giant in the world of Islamic scholarship. This is a retranslation. This is a collaboration between Al-Azhar and Medina universities. So Al-Azhar is the most famous Islamic seminary on earth, legal school and seminary. It's the most famous on earth. Okay, it's like the Oxford and Cambridge and rolled into one.
Of the Islamic world, yeah.
Of the Islamic world. And then you've got the other one, Medina University, which is the city of the Prophet, where Muhammad lived and died. And so these two universities are collaborating to do a retranslation. Let's go have a look at what they say on page 12 about hadiths so that we're all clear about this. Okay. Let's go have a look here. It should be noted, okay, removing weak hadiths from works was not the example of the scholars. Okay, because Muslims love to say that's a weak hadith. Well, I'm telling you, they are lying to you. Lying to you. Otherwise, Imam Ibn Hajar would not have included weak hadith himself in Fath al-Bari as sources to take knowledge from. Weak hadith are used to support opinions because a weak hadith containing the words of the Prophet is preferred over pure opinion and personal reasoning, and this is the example set by all the scholars, including Imam Bukhari, who used them deliberately in his work Al-Adab al-Mufrad. Everyone knows of the Sahih Bukhari. Bukhari wrote other works of hadiths as well. One of these called the Al-Adab al-Mufrad, which was not the Sahih, was other grades.
Okay.
The Sahih of Imam Bukhari is a collection of the Sahih hadith specifically. It is not a collection of the only hadith that scholars should use. The scholars themselves state a Sahih hadith has about a 99 to 100% chance of being entirely accurate. A Hasan hadith has an 85 to 99% chance of being entirely accurate. And notice, a Da'if hadith has a 45 to 85% chance of being entirely accurate. So it could be Hasan. Exactly. And this is the widest band of accuracy. Notice, even a fabricated hadith has a 45% chance of being accurate, since the grading it was given may have been wrong or the fabricator may have spoken the truth in this instance. Weak hadith should not be treated like fabricated hadith, because an 85% chance of being entirely accurate is a very high chance. If you received 85% on your test scores, would you throw that out saying that isn't worth anything? Each hadith is treated individually. There is no such thing in Islam as banning an entire grade of hadiths from being used. Even fabricated hadith are still studied because one scholar may grade it fabricated, while another may grade it sahih. And there are many famous examples among the scholars of this occurring.
Thank you, Lloyd, because this, when you asked me earlier, the streams we're doing together, has it improved just my general knowledge of Islam? This was a massive one for me, because that you also obviously say Da'if Bukhari whenever you mention it, but whenever, anytime you bring up a Sahih Bukhari hadith, they will be waiting for one version of it somewhere to be not graded at the same ranking. But it's funny that they mentioned test scores in this, because as you were reading it and you were reading the bracket of the Da'if hadith, 45 to 80%, I was just thinking about like a university degree, for example, and that is from everything from a pass to a distinction in that bandwidth, which is essentially Da'if hadiths. But this is one point that I definitely did keep in mind, because it really is a perfect challenge when Muslims try and discount what you're saying and brush it under the carpet under the name of being Da'if. And then you bring up something like this, which is sanctioned by, as you said, the Oxbridge of the Islamic world, and this is their breakdown of it. And again, like you have certain instances in law, they are saying, well, we can't assume that on every occasion this person was lying just because he told a fib on one occasion. So there might have been, in this instance, a short or a small percentage of a chance that he spoke the truth, and therefore they actually still study them. So even by Muslims' own admittance, you can't throw away anything so we can take everything then at face value. We can take Sahih, we can take Hasan, we can take them whether it's from Bukhari or Al-Albani or whoever, because they're studied as a collective. And as you said, the weak traditions have not been thrown out. What I want to say to Muslims is that we have enough Sahih graded hadiths, even by your own standards, that are damaging. But if you want to go and open up to the others that are in there, imagine how many hadiths Bukhari threw away. I think there was, I don't know the actual figure, Lloyd, but it was something
There must have been
crazy.
like at least, okay, look, don't forget, the Kitab al-Sitta, the 6 books, are not, it's kind of random that they chose those 6 books. It's kind of random. Because you see, the Jews also have their 6 books in the Talmud. So
Right.
so these guys, I mean, I'll talk about this later in this series, but
Sure.
the Jews had 6 books, so the Muslims had to have 6 books too, and they just picked these 6 at random. There's dozens of these collections, and there's like 2 million hadith, of which maybe 20,000 are known. So, I
Wow.
mean, ask yourself, you know, yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. And so,
And the hadith,
uh,
you have to say, Lloyd, the hadith are like the telephone game just gone out of hand. The telephone game on
correct.
steroids.
There's the telephone game. Exactly. It is exactly that. And it's a joke. I mean, I can look, the things we can go into the Sharia itself, which discusses hadith and tells you, no, the weak hadith are not to be discarded as well. You can go into the Sharia directly and
Mm,
it'll tell you the same thing. These guys are
yeah.
lying to you about the weak hadith. So perfect dawah. Notice he's ignored this little bit now. Let's see what he says. Let's see what interesting stories he makes up. But understand, so there are two main sources for discovering the law: the revealed or the root sources, which are the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay. And of course, the Sunnah includes the Hadith plus the Sirah. Now, the Sirah is where you find out that Muhammad was a god, right? That Muhammad was made from the light of Allah, that Muhammad was
The Noor of
constructed from,
Allah. Yeah.
yeah, that Muhammad was with Allah at the creation, that Muhammad's light is what adorns the throne and lights up the throne.
And was there at the
Any
dawn of
hadith,
existence, right?
correct, he was, yeah.
Yeah.
Notice perfect dawah. Any hadith that goes against Quran is fabricated, including Bukhari was a great. See, under the bus. Imam Bukhari, one of the greatest scholars. Now, notice this is his opinion. Show me from the Sharia. Show me evidence, okay? Actual evidence. And I'd love to see some, okay? This is an opinion, okay? Learn the difference,
I also think
right?
Perfect Dawah does not subscribe to Sunni Islam whatsoever. I actually think he's
No, he's
affiliated with
lying
some
to you. No,
Iranian.
look,
I don't want to say it, but
I've seen this
but
too often, but you catch
yeah.
them out. I've seen this too often. You play with them long enough, and then eventually they slip. Their mask slips, and they make a mistake. Now they believe in these hadith. They do not deny these rulings. They just deny them in front of you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So notice there are four sources now. The ijma, okay. This is the consensus of the founding scholars. This abrogates the Quran. This overrules the Quran and the hadiths. The consensus of the scholars, which is remember Muslims always say it depends how it's interpreted.
Yeah,
Well, this is
yeah.
the final. This is the final
Exactly. And they always say,
interpretation.
what's the ijma on it? What's the ijma on it? Well,
This is the
that
final
yeah.
interpretation. This is the final meaning, right? Then you have ijtihad, independent reasoning, and of course this was done. Well, we'll talk more. And the qiyas, which is legal analogy. You can probably explain that, but this is legal analogy, legal comparison, extracting the meaning from one case that's similar to another, so that you can derive a legal reasoning from it. Right?
Yeah, it's like how you would extract like precedent from case law type thing.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, ijma, according to the Encyclopedia of Islam, which again costs about $40,000 to buy a copy, or $45,000 to buy a copy of
Flippin'
this.
heck.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's expensive. Free copies. Hopefully, the links are in the description, but get your free copy. In
Lloyd,
law,
you're a superstar. Thank you on behalf of
yeah,
everyone watching.
this is the gold standard in Islamic knowledge, and this is written by Islamic scholars. You got to be so careful as well, because many of them are apologists. So you kind of got to read between the lines sometimes. So ijma is in practice the most important of the sources of legal knowledge. It is the unanimous agreement of the community. No, it's not the community. It's of the scholarly community of the scholars of the ummah, not the ummah itself. And it is the unanimous doctrine and opinion of the recognized religious authorities.
Again, an elite few, not the
Correct.
whole ummah.
We discussed that. And then they utilize independent reasoning called the ijtihad mutlaq. Mutlaq means absolute. So absolute
Right.
reasoning. In law, the creative act of reasoning through which the founding imams derived from the revealed sources a systematic structure of law. So if perfect dawah, for instance, can you show me how to conduct a wedding from the Quran? Which page is it on? You know, the whole process for doing a wedding. Or maybe how do you do the Hajj? How do you do the whole pilgrimage, start to finish? Or even the Shahada, the full Shahada, or maybe the 5 daily prayers. How do you even do the prayers in the mosque? None of that's in the Quran. So they had to go through all of these sources and then from there construct this whole methodology, this whole system. You see? So they used what's called ijtihad mutlaq. Okay? And so mutlaq means absolute. So absolute reasoning. And this absolute reasoning was done by 4 absolute scholars, the mujtahids mutlaq. So the mujtahids mutlaq are obviously Hanafi, Shafi, and so on, right? The 4 scholars, they are absolute scholars. They cannot be wrong. They are perfect. See? So now you have the 4 roots, the 4 proofs of Islam. So the proofs of Islam refer to the proofs that mujtahids rely on when they deduce and describe the rules of Islam. Because the Quran doesn't have a lot of these things, right? I mean, just ask them to show you the 5 daily prayers of the Shahada. It's not
Yeah,
in
they
there,
can't. They can't at all.
right?
Not even the full etiquette around fasting, ablution,
Nothing.
Hajj, everything. Yeah,
Yeah. It's all missing. They say, look, you should do it. Okay, so how? Well,
exactly.
but you can find it in the Sharia books. I can show you word for word how it's done from just reading it out of the book, right? Yeah, Andrew Martin, that is truly correct. So now notice these proofs are Quran, the divine scriptural revelation, and I can do a whole story on that. That's another story on its own. Okay. Then the Sunnah is oral tradition of Muhammad. That's Hadith plus Sirah, right? Then the Ijma, the consensus of the jurists, right? Then the Qiyas, juristic, logical argument, or comparative analogy. Right? These are the four roots, the proofs of Islam. This is how Islam is proven. And then you deduce a judgment for a case based on similarities to a case found explicitly in the religious text. But what if it's not found explicitly? Then you need to do reasoning. Then you have to do the ijtihad,
Yeah.
right? Now, there are differences between Sharia and fiqh. Now, we tend to use them, and I tend to use them synonymously, and lots of people do, really, even the Muslims do. But technically, the Sharia is what is revealed. Allah said, don't eat peaches. Okay? Allah said the sky is purple with blue stripes. Okay? These are revealed rulings, explicitly said. The fiqh is how the revealed law is understood and applied, or what is interpreted from the rule to apply it to a situation that does not have an explicit precedent within the revealed sources, right? So the Sharia is derived from Quran and Sunnah, but then the fiqh is derived from and constrained by the Sharia in theory. Don't forget, in obligatory lying, we've discussed some of that. Within the doctrine of obligatory lying in Islam, they have a concept called hiyal, which allows them to literally circumvent and break any law,
Yeah.
any promise, any contract, any oath. So the Sharia is very broad and general, whereas the fiqh tends to be very specific. They go into detail. Now, the Sharia cannot be abrogated, it cannot be changed, nor can it be annulled. But notice the Quran is abrogated. The Sharia, never. And the Sharia, technically, is what has been interpreted from the sources by the scholars. So the word of the scholars can never be abrogated,
Yeah,
but the
which is
Quran can.
so weird because that trumps the word of essentially what you're told is the word of God, which is the Quran. And now you have a scholar's word, which is it's impossible for it to be abrogated, yet Quran verses here are being abrogated according to them left, right, and center. So who's really the top dog here?
Ask yourself that.
Ask yourselves that, Muslims.
Yeah. So the scholarly consensus is the ijma. There are four integrals. Okay, so we'd have to go to Reliance. So let me go. So Reliance B7, page 22 to 25. So let's go have a look at that. So 22. Notice they speak here the superior. So we're going to learn this last section that we'll cover. I'll talk about the authority of the scholars, and you're going to have a look at that now. The superiority of sacred knowledge, the gnosis, right? So Nawawi, Nawawi is really, even though Shafi might have founded the school of the Shafi school, and even though Shafi technically is the founder of the Sharia, the guy who modernized and harmonized, who brought Shafi is again another giant in Islamic scholarship. However, he also is responsible for the construction of the Sharia. He laid the foundation that everyone followed.
Okay. And Lloyd, sorry,
Right?
I just have one question that's really, really
Mm-hmm.
annoying me. These imam, like Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, Hanbali, are these imams? Were they also initiated? Because the founders of the four main schools, let's say at least, were they also initiated in the whole? Like, were they elevated this to the
So many of
state
them
of
are
saints or
Sufis.
Sufis?
Okay,
Okay,
many
that's
of
what I
them
want to
are
know. Yeah.
Sufis. Many of them were Sufis, or they were trained by Sufis and were
Okay.
influenced heavily by Sufis. What is interesting? So if you have a look, actually, you know what? I've been wanting for a while to make a table just to have like what their connections are to Sufism. But if you do have a look, many of them either were Sufis or they were heavily influenced and trained with Sufis, so they were very familiar with
But
this
maybe with
practice.
different schools of thoughts, right? Because like Imam Maliki takes a different turn on many things, and then like the Hanafi
Where they
school of
differ is
thought takes
minor. Look, remember, Muslims make too much of the differences, and
right.
because the fact is that they are the same. They're identical on 80% of stuff. Remember, as a simple example, the 20% of things where the scholars differ, where they say, well, the scholars differ, it's like I like coffee, you like tea, you both like to drink something,
A hot
right?
bevy. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Understand? I like two sugars, you like one sugar. That's the difference.
But we can
You know,
both
the
sit
other
down
guy
and
wants
enjoy
no
tea at the
sugar.
same time.
Yeah, you're all having
Yeah.
tea, but this guy likes one sugar. He doesn't like milk. That's,
Yeah,
but
gotcha.
understand, it's the difference between, do you hold your hands up by your face when you pray? Do you hold your hands by your navel? Now, does that
Do
affect
you
whether or
lift your
not
finger
Allah?
like that for Ashhadu an la ilaha, or do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Does that affect whether Allah is real or not? Does it affect whether or not you should pay zakat, go on Hajj? No, it doesn't. It's got
Not
nothing to
a
do with the
bit.
fundamentals.
The
It is
5
purely
pillars are intact.
cosmetic. It is
Yes.
cosmetic. It is nothing other. Oh, by the way, there is proof. We have the science has discovered proof that Allah is real and Allah exists because they discovered that
Oh,
the
Lloyd,
yes,
who's about to win the
yes,
Nobel Peace Prize?
no, because we know for a fact Allah exists because the universe started with an explosion.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry.
Stoning adulterers goes against the Quran, but most idiot scholars know. Blah blah blah. So stoning is very much in the Sharia, and he did look. Give me
Where is it?
evidence from the
Oh,
Sharia.
here we are. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect, doofus. Um, we've covered this before. The stoning, it's actually within the Sharia. It's directly within the Sharia. So I mean, look, it's just propaganda. That's wonderful.
But yeah,
Now,
Perfect Dawa has his own very niche strand of Islam that we don't.
yeah, but they all do. They all become Quran only Muslims all of a sudden when faced with. So let's finish this. Let's actually do the section 22 to 25. Let's do this.
Yeah.
This is the superiority of sacred knowledge. So those who have the sacred knowledge, remember those scholars, the high level scholars. Now, Nawawi is a very famous scholar. This is the guy ultimately who was the greatest scholar ultimately of Shafi fiqh, and therefore one of the most influential in all of Islam. And he says, are those who know and those who do not know equal? No, they're not. See, the lay Muslims at the Ibara level, they are not equal. Okay? So Allah raises those of you who believe and those of you who've been given knowledge by whole degrees. So these scholars are raised by whole degrees. The Prophet himself said, whoever Allah wishes well, he gives knowledge. Okay, the gnosis.
The
And the
secret
superiority,
knowledge. Yeah.
correct. And the superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is as Muhammad's superiority over the least of the Muslims.
Wow. And this
Yes.
man is meant to be like the holiest man that you're meant to revere. And he's exerting superiority over his own people.
Right.
And
So understand that the
what
scholar,
has a lay Muslim got to do if you're never even
see,
invited to be part of this fold?
you must understand the scholars have inherited the mantle of authority
Yeah.
of Muhammad. They carry
This
on his legacy.
Yes, exactly. This is essentially like Islam's hierarchy, almost like because as you said, Islam doesn't have priests. This is essentially Islam's priesthood.
And they say here, okay, they speak of the sacred knowledge, right? The superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is like the superiority of the moon over all the stars. Now, why would they choose the moon as the image?
Lloyd, great question. And I would say I don't know, except I've done a whole series with you on this, explaining why the
Discussing
hell
this.
they would revere
Yeah.
the moon.
And the learned are the heirs of the prophets. So these people have the same status as Moses and David and Ezekiel
Adam,
and Jeremiah
Abraham,
and so
yeah,
on.
Lot,
Understand?
yeah,
The
yeah, Jacob.
prophets have not bequeathed dinar nor dirham, but they left sacred knowledge, and whoever takes it has an enormous share. Now, the lay Muslims at the Ibarra level know roughly zero, right? Whereas these guys at the higher levels, they have the secret knowledge. He who goes forth to seek secret knowledge is in the way of Allah, but notice is in the way of jihad. You mentioned that the
Yeah,
Sufis are always in the way of jihad, that the first guys out the gate.
yeah,
Well,
to rally up the
knowledge in the way of
troops
Allah.
is
See,
Well,
see the way of jihad.
is that also, Lloyd, because they're exposed to those further rationales behind jihad and the real mission behind Islam, and they understand the true meaning of deen, and they understand the true meaning of other religions only defend
Right?
themselves and they only hold positions of authority because it just fell in their lap. But we demand it. They know
Yeah,
that. Therefore,
and they need to
yeah,
make sure that yeah. So notice, right? Notice. So the knowledge is in the way of Allah, which means knowledge is in the way of jihad. See? And notice here, again, this Gnostic influence, the world and what is in it are accursed, which is a Gnostic belief that all matter is cursed, except for the remembrance of Allah, dhikr,
thicker, yeah.
that which Allah loves, and someone with sacred knowledge or someone learning it.
That's why Sufis spend so much time dedicating to dhikr. Dhikr is basically the recitation and the remembrance of God to the point where you're almost in a
Mantras,
trance-like setting.
mantras.
Mantras, exactly, and it's normally done in a communal setting. And each country you go to that practices Sufism in their own way, they've adopted it culturally with their own instruments and their own version of getting into the trance. From everything to like the whirling dervishes that you see to like just in like vastly different concepts of Sufism that we see in like African countries that are Muslim, right? It's vastly, but it's the same concept of that recitation. Lloyd, can
Dervishes
you
are
just scroll
Sufis.
back?
It's a
Yeah.
practice. Sorry, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, can you just scroll up for 1 second? I was going to ask you. I was going to say something about. Yeah, I had a question for you. Anyway, carry on. If it comes back to me, I'll bring it up.
It's
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to say, just to play devil's advocate for the Muslims, what would you say here if somebody said, "Well, that kind of jihad there is so linked, like so inextricably linked with divine wisdom and divine knowledge that there you could argue they're talking about spiritual, like jihad within or internal jihad as opposed to external aggressor jihad."
um, yeah, we'll talk about that another day. To talk about jihad would be another 3 hours just to
All right.
unpack all of that.
Okay, but yeah, be
Um,
careful. A Muslim
yeah,
might spring that one on you there.
yeah. Perfect doofus is now denying abrogation. They all do that. They all do that. So the religious scholar is greater in reward than the fighter in the way of Allah. I thought that jihad, those who die in jihad, those who kill and are killed, are the greatest, who receive the greatest reward. They have like 100 levels greater than the average
I
human.
mean, that's what
Well,
Muhammad's
no,
going around
no,
promising everyone in
no.
the hadith.
No, the religious scholar is even greater in reward than the
Who
jihadi.
knew? That poor man who threw himself into the battlefield because the Prophet said anyone who jumps in without any armor is like the most revered in Allah's eyes and Allah will laugh him into
The
paradise.
scholars with the sacred knowledge are the
That poor guy
greatest.
could have just been a scholar and his fate would have been
Exactly.
different. He would have
The
lived.
greatest of these are the scholars. Notice the scholars are the heirs of the prophets. They repeat it, while devotees, which is the lay Muslim, that's you, perfect doofus, devotees are not characterized as such, right? And sacred knowledge, meaning the knowledge we're discussing, is a communal obligation. The communal obligation is superior to the personal obligation that the person performing it fulfills the needs of the Islamic nation, the ummah, and lifts the obligation from it. The obligation of the individual is restricted to himself. So perfect doofus here, he does his 5 prayers a day, and that's nice. But you see, he's just one lame guy at the bottom of the barrel, with his little mosquito buzzing to God's ears or whatever the case might be. Whereas the scholars, you see, they have a direct line, they have communion with Allah. So God really hears their prayers. You see, so those prayers go up to the scholars, and then they're connected through the imam to his imam to his imam to the major scholars, and those scholars take all that and then connect to Allah.
But Lloyd, this
So
is
these
actually
guys,
infuriating me because this is horrible. That poor lay Muslim that bows up and down 5 times a day, does ablution 5 times a day, wakes up at the dawn, the crack of dawn to fulfill that. There's even a prayer before the crack of dawn if you want to get more rewards. And yet, your own God that you're doing that for, that you're being this obedient slave for, in that manner, does not respect you. He respects his chosen people at the top, the elite few. They are guaranteed
right?
these high ranks in heaven, in Islamic paradise. You, as you said, Lloyd, are just at the bottom of the barrel of this hierarchy, performing some robotic, almost zombie-like duty that's not even given any credence, really, in the scripture.
Yeah. So I'll finally talk. Yeah, exactly. So understand. It doesn't work. Islam doesn't work the way people think it works. Now, scholarly consensus. I want to talk about this. So we'll do a couple of pages and we'll call it a night.
Sure.
And
Thank you. Yeah, we're over the hour mark, so I appreciate
yeah.
any extra
So
minute.
notice it says here the ijma. They speak of the ijma. This is in the Sharia. Remember, this is the world's most famous, most popular ijma manual. So if perfect dawah has a problem, he needs to go and speak to the scholars at Al-Azhar and explain to them how they are wrong and how he knows better. Maybe you can explain to us how you know better, except you only have your opinion apparently. So, scholarly consensus. So let's see. All mujtahids of the Muslims in the period of the thing or event agree on its ruling, regardless of their country, race, or group. Notice non-mujtahids are of no consequence.
Wow.
Are you a lay Muslim? Then
Straight
F
up.
off.
Straight up. Yeah, you don't belong here. You're not. You
Go
literally not
away.
required, mate. Yeah.
Go away. You have an
Piss
opinion.
off.
We don't care.
Yes.
Exactly. Understand this? They say it quite clearly, right? And then a ruling agreed upon is an authoritative part of sacred law that is obligatory to obey and not lawful to disobey. Nor can mujtahids of a new era make the thing an object of a new ijtihad, because the ruling on it, verified by scholarly consensus, is an absolute legal ruling which does not admit of being contravened or annulled.
Sounds a lot like the word of God to me, Lloyd.
Yeah, the scholars are telling you this is the word of God, and
Very
we are
much
the
set in
guys
stone.
who,
That's gospel. Yeah.
yeah. He'd explain if we gave him the opportunity. How about you prove to me that you know something by citing the Sharia? Now, I will warn you, as you well know, it's illegal for you to cite the Sharia, but I'd love to see you do it so that you show me that you have scholarly knowledge and you are showing me references from actual authoritative books that are in use today, and maybe I'll listen to you. Otherwise, you're just waffling, buddy.
Lloyd, I
So,
wouldn't even worry about him. I'm going to actually block him because he's affiliated with some very unscrupulous organizations, apparently. And until we check that out,
all
he
right,
does not need to be here disrupting the stream. But yeah, I just want
all
you to
right.
be able to wrap it up smoothly.
So I'll
Yeah,
finish
yeah.
this. Yeah. So the proof of the legal authority of scholarly consensus is that just as Allah ordered the believers in the Quran to obey him and his messenger, so too he has ordered the followers of Islam, the believers, to obey those of authority, the ulul al-amr among them, saying, O you who believe, obey Allah and obey the Prophet and those of authority among you. Quran 4:59. So the scholars have exactly the same as authority as Muhammad. They are the
Yeah.
regents, the viceroys of Muhammad. They take over his mantle of authority directly. Such that when those of authority in legal expertise, the mujtahids, agree upon a ruling, it is obligatory in the very words of the Quran to follow them and carry out their judgment. And Allah threatens those who oppose the messenger and follow other than the believer's way, saying,
Of course he does.
Whoever controverts the messenger after guidance has become clear to him and follows other than the believer's way, we shall give him over to what he has turned to and roast him in hell. And how evil an outcome. Quran 4:115. And the
Lovely. So,
second,
such beautiful words in that holy
yeah,
book.
the second evidentiary aspect is that a ruling agreed upon by all the mujtahids in the Islamic community is in fact the ruling of the community.
There we go,
See?
Muslims. Do you
And
read that?
notice, yes. And the community is divinely the imams here. When they say the community, this is the royal we. Okay, this is
Yeah,
not
yeah. This is the
the
royal we,
community
indeed.
is divinely protected from error. They cannot make a mistake.
Divinely as well, Lloyd. They are
Yes.
divine. They are mere
Yeah.
mortals, yet they're divinely protected from error. Yet there's plenty of them after Muhammad.
Yeah. So
So much
notice,
for being the seal of the prophets who's getting a divine revelation, because all these people can carry on the mantle.
yes, exactly. And they interpret everything, right?
Yeah.
So including Allah saying, my community shall not agree on an error. Okay. Allah is not wont to make my community concur on misguidance. That which the Muslims, they mean the scholars here, consider good, Allah considers good. So whatever the scholars have said, that is the will of Allah, and Allah.
So Allah agrees with scholars. Scholars don't agree with Allah. Allah says XYZ. Scholars interpret XYZ. Allah agrees.
Yeah.
Scholars' word is
See,
set in
so
stone.
according to the Quran, Allah will not make His community agree on misguidance. So if they have an ijma, if they have an agreement, then that is the will of Allah.
Yes.
See, so this basically, this very bluntly is, and the validity of the scholarly consensus, okay, is that Allah's hand is over the group, and whoever dissents from the ijma departs to hell.
Wow.
So I
Okay. So
think
any Muslim
I'll
listening who
I'll finish
says
here.
that the
Yeah.
ijma is wrong on something, what was the wording that Muhammad used or the Quran used, Lloyd? That they will be that Muhammad said, Allah's hand is over your group, and whoever dissents from you who rejects the ijma departs to hell. Muslims, these are your own words relating to your own actions when we try and engage.
Yeah, and I'll finish here then, meaning that whoever diverges from the overwhelming majority concerning what is lawful, unlawful, and on which the community does not differ, has slipped off the path of guidance, and this will lead him to hell. And other than the four Sunni schools of jurisprudence, they do not necessarily play a role in scholarly consensus, and only these four schools are relevant. There is scholarly consensus on its being unlawful to follow rulings from schools other than those of the four imams. I'll stop here, but this, remember, the four imams did ijtihad mutlaq. They did absolute perfect reasoning. And these four scholars, as we'll discuss next time, are the absolute scholars. They are the perfect scholars. They are the perfect knowers
Absolute
of
authority on that.
absolute authorities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll stop here. Hopefully that was
Okay.
helpful and
That was amazing and so informative as usual, Lloyd. I just also want to say that, like, I'm actually a bit angry at the end of today's episode because I just feel so almost. I really feel bad for all these Muslims who think that they are really striving in the way of God and following Muhammad's example and keeping up with their prayers. Like my own family, like members of them freak out if they realize the time is gone for a certain prayer. You know that like yeah, like Christian Prince says, it's like is Allah a government building that he shuts it like every 2 hours? Like what's going on? But they really take on that guilt, and then to know that actually deep within the Islamic sources and even darker and deeper within the hierarchy, these people giving their entire life to this are nothing. They're just like crumbs at the
yeah,
bottom, and their own people and Muhammad himself, who they love more than their parents and their children and their own families and everybody. Muhammad, the name that they're willing to kill in the name of, murder
mm,
people in cold blood,
mm,
is somebody who says you're not going to be worth anything unless you're a scholar. Even if you lose your life as a martyr of Islam fighting jihad, you will never be good as that Islamic scholar. And who is allowed into that realm of scholarship and elitism? A very, very select few, a handful. And the ones that have cemented their mark, and that's it. All the rest of you are just little guinea pigs for them to, hand out their rulings on and keep you just like zombified in the state of bowing up and down 5 times a day and thinking you're earning rewards, where really, even contrary to Muhammad's own words in the hadith, these people have got nothing waiting in store for them, even by Muhammad's own words. Like he's literally counted what he says in the hadith when he's made all these false promises to people, like, oh, give me your second set of armor and jump in without any, Allah loves them the most, or give me your farm and you've got a mansion in paradise. The guy does
yeah,
not care for these people at all. So yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much. That was highly informative. I just have to just raise this one super chat before we go from Order of the Dragon again. Thank you so much for your super chat. Order of the Dragon is asked, saying, every Muslim says Muhammad was given the Quran. If that's the case, why is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah not written in it?
That's what I asked earlier.
Yeah,
The Shahada. Show me the full Shahada in the Quran. It's not there.
yeah. And
So
that's a very
you
good
want to say
point.
the Quran's not abrogated? Well, then where do you get the Shahada from? Show me in the Quran. I thought the Quran's perfect, the complete book.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have the very words that you are required to say to become a Muslim or get into the fold or become a believer of the right
Hmm.
path, if those very words are not embodied and encapsulated and codified in what they consider the final and eternal, timeless, most beautiful book of God, then surely that raises questions. Really, it does. If it's got a Rahim, a Rahman, that's in there. There's Yasin, there's some other weird references, but
Yeah,
there's not the entire Shahada. So that is definitely
yeah,
a moment for pause, and that's food for thought. But yeah, thank you so much, Order of the Dragon, and I hope you enjoyed
yeah.
today's stream.
There's so much more to be said, but of course, I mean, so guys, yeah, I need to call it a night.
Yes.
So
Thank
thanks. I
you
hope it's been
so much.
educational. Thank you all. So hey, Thunderous, welcome, and Leuchte, hello there, and Farish, thanks guys all for all the birthday wishes. And yeah, so again, all of these notes are available. Go to my channel, go to the community page. I think you'll find a Sharia sort of post, and all the links to all the books that I'm using, all available. Download them, read them for yourself, and notice all the Muslims who commented. There's this "I am a mouse" or something. There's a or oh, we are we are lions. He's so optimistic. Notice it's all opinion. It's all opinion. There's actually no references, no citations. I'm using the words of the greatest scholars of Islam to ever live. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for
Yeah.
me, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think everyone is just really, really grateful that you came. Everyone's saying happy birthday and good night. Yeah, Lloyd, so we wish you all the best. Thank you so much. It was highly informative. I'm definitely going to listen to this back. And yeah, till next time. Uh, Peace
Most
out,
time. Till next
everybody.
week.
Thank you.
Thank
Till
you.
next
Take care,
week.
everyone.
Bye.
Go
Thank
well.
you so much, Lloyd.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks again. Bye.